Dan Schwartz and the amazing Grateful Dead gift guitar. And the magnificent Maine trip. This is a story told to the rising generations that have come from my friends. I have a body, and from my body there has never come a child. But I have 3 friends, and 4 and 5 and more who have had these children things. Okay? So I'm telling this story for the children of our friend group when we are dead and gone and our bones and dust are back in the dirt. Dan Schwartz and the amazing, miraculous Grateful Dead gift guitar and the magnificent Maine trip. So many marvelous things. Okay, you're growing up in America and you like music. Music is a big part of day-to-day life. And if you are a musician and singing or playing instrument, da 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 da. Da 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 da. You have melodies that sit inside you, and you have little riffs and bits that are a part of your vibrating human joy sense. And you sing, and you repeat things, and you repeat words of interesting creativity and words of humor. Nick Danger, Third Eye. And so, in our lives, where we are thrown into the peculiar, controlling, mind-bending atmosphere of elementary school, junior high school, and high school, as designed by the world juggernaut, who will only tell you certain information and who wants you to have a mind that goes away from certain true things and towards certain half-true things that benefit the juggernaut, those in power. So in the midst of elementary school and junior high school and high school, there is a lot of enjoyment of various types of music, both instrumental and accompanied by lyrics of many sorts. And then there is the secret reality that all human beings are better when we form a friend group of peace, a collegium of peace and good humor, a friend group to return to and to relax in, and to even sing our songs and play our music in. Well, it's in that atmosphere that myself, Steve Lintner, the name that I have been commonly referred to for a long, long time, Dan Schwartz and I became very closest friends, very close friends. And we had close friendships with others in our peer group that were no more or less valuable than the relationship between Dan and I. But one day, un día, one day, setting the scenario, there is a musical group referred to as the Grateful Dead. Oh my gosh, sighted moon. Actually, it's a waning moon. Amazing crescent. Amazing crescent on the eastern horizon. "5 a.m. I would try to show you a picture, but it's kind of pointless. Huge crescent hanging on the edge of the horizon. Just an hour or so before sunrise. Amazing, startling view. So, there's a musical group referred to as the Grateful Dead. And a couple of our favorite bands being the Grateful Dead and also Gentle Giant, and Yes, and many, many others. One day, my friend Dan was able to be touring around in California and went to a famous guitar studio. And the artist, the luthier who builds guitars, his name is Rick Turner. And he builds the guitars for the Grateful Dead. Friend Dan has a series of opportunities and connectedness with California and visits California on occasion. And in one journey to California, when we are all still 16, 17 years old. On a journey to California, Dan Schwartz visits the famous Alembic, A-L-E-M-B-I-C, Alembic Studios, with the Rick Turner guitar builder guy. And he goes and sees this amazing workshop of spectacular guitars that are going into the hands of some of our favorite musicians. And I can't recount the story because I wasn't there. But the bottom line is, un día, one day, Dan goes into Alembic Studios and he sees this bass guitar, which was the first and very special Alembic bass guitar that was made for Phil Lesh, the bass player of a favorite band, the Grateful Dead. A fellow named Jerry Garcia, well-known guitar player, missing a finger, is a part of that group, and many others. So Dan goes into Alembic Studios and he sees this guitar, and I assume, I don't know for sure, that this really cool guitar of Phil Lesh's is kind of being operated on one of the tables. And then, at a time later, possibly considerably later, our friend Dan is at a Grateful Dead concert and is able to communicate with Phil Lesh at some point. I don't know whether it was during sound check or after the gig or what, but Dan Schwartz had a communication with Phil Lesh, the famous bass player of a favorite musical group. And Dan said, what's going on with that really neat bass? What is happening with that bass? The first bass that Rick Turner made for you, the first Alembic guitar. That is a fretless bass and has lots of very pretty carvings and inlays of abalone and mother of pearl, and it's a beautifully decorated guitar, but it's not being used, or at least it's hanging out in the studio, in the Alembic studio, sort of being operated on. So Dan asks Phil, what's going on with that guitar? And Phil Lesh responds something like this: the guitar is kind of impossible to use in public performance because it's a hollow body and it has a very kind of booming sound in combination with the fretless fingerboard. It doesn't really work. It doesn't blend well with the Grateful Dead tunes. And so it's in the studio and it's being used as basically a test bed for various types of pickups and electronics. So basically this bass guitar, this beautiful, very unusual bass guitar, is kind of lying around sort of like a cadaver being used to put different organs in it to see how things flow. And then at some point in the conversation with this young guy, Dan SCHWARTZ, at some point in the conversation, Phil Lesh, the famous and favorite bass player, says, "I'm not using it. Do you want it? You can have it." Un dia, one day, my friend, close friend, powerful, humorous fellow singer of songs, and friend group collegium of humorous commentaries, friend Dan is given the marvelous Grateful guitar gift. Now imagine, just imagine, you're a person in a group of persons and you all enjoy various favorite bands. And we're living in the, as my dad would call it, the audio-visual kid world of Elvis Presley and the Beatles and stuff like that. And here we are. We're just these people, and we do have these bands and groups and famous people and individuals who have become slightly famous or largely famous. And one of those faraway people that we have truly idolized and imitated in our singing, our playing, one of these people pops out of the fabric of faraway important people and becomes real and says, "Hi, you can have my guitar." Imagine the delight of the group of friends. Phil Lesh is giving Dan his most amazing first work of art guitar. We don't even really know this guitar. All we know is the descriptions and how monumental it is, and how it's like the first Rick Turner alembic guitar. I guess when the guy was kind of starting out, just being a part of the loop of the Grateful Dead combine, you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of people and effort to get a band on stage with fine equipment and fine amplification and order and structure. It's a big, big, complex business. And one element of that business is, where does the guitar come from? Do you buy it from the Guild Factory? And if you do, can you make it special? So, imagine, you know, like imagine John Lennon pops his head into one of your friends' lives and says, "Hi, I'm going to give you the guitar that I played in all those gigs in Hamburg, Germany, before we were anybody." I mean, it's just like a special moment. And I'm sure there are thousands of special guitar gift moments from famous musicians out in the world. I'm sure this is not an uncommon event across the board, but the fact that one day, it happened to Dan Schwartz and therefore collectively to us. And it was and has been and still is a marvelous delight that you, the rising generation, just ought to know about. It was a wow thing in our human history and friend history. It was a wow thing. And so, you, Claire, greetings. You, Adrian, son of Christine Guédon. You, Chris. Anna. Children of Eric Bone and precious Lisa. And the children of Stephanie and Steve, the Steve and Steph Show. Subsequent to the other Steve and Steph Show that once lived long, long ago. And precious harp player Leilani, daughter of Susan. My goodness. What a tender and refreshing soul she is. All of you and anyone else, the children of Tina the Boland, all you guys, I want you to remember the story of Dan SCHWARTZ, and the magnificent Grateful Dead guitar gift. Just remember and marvel a little bit. That's part one. Part two is the marvelous, magnificent, glorious Maine trip. One little moment of a drive north from New Jersey, turning around and driving back to New Jersey on the road into beautiful New England with 4 friends stuck in one really cool car that didn't seem like a whole lot then, but my goodness, looking back on that car, that was quite a machine. Okay, end of part one. But of course, Dan could add some things. He could add some